Hi guys, how you doing? Diane Hayes here. And this is my creative cap, a new one I made today. It's pretty simple. I find that I'm able to think better and create better when I have something pretty and beautiful to attach to me. Let's show you guys how to make this real quick. You just take yourself about 4 pipe cleaners, 1, 2, 3, and 4 over here, and you bend them in half like this, and you find yourself a pretty feather, and you just twist the pipe cleaner around that feather. Then you add another pipe cleaner to this end, and then once again you add another attractive feather to that end. This time I'm choosing red. And you make it as big or as small as your head is, and then you wrap it around your head and it becomes your creative cap. All right, today we're talking about another painter, and his name is Mark Rothko. Mark Rothko was born after the World War II. Now, you guys probably have no idea when World War II was, but it was many, many years ago when the country was in turmoil. And Mark was born a Lithuanian Jew. And because he was born after the war, he was a fairly depressed and unhappy person. But he wanted, somewhere in his soul, in his heart, and his spirit, he wanted to create beauty. And he wanted to create beauty using large swaths of color. And as you can see, we consider him a color field artist. He didn't describe himself as any kind of an artist. He just said he was an artist, and he didn't want to be known as someone who was just making pretty pictures. He wanted to be known as someone who inspired, motivated people as far as emotions of joy, exhilaration, or dread and doom. He just had a hard time because he was coming right out of the war, so therefore life really wasn't all that easy for Mr. Rothko. So today what we're going to do is we're going to explore different techniques he might have used to paint. Again, he used a canvas. This is a canvas, and it's stapled onto stretcher here on the back, and see it stapled along the side. You don't need to use a canvas, but I'm just going to use a canvas for today so that you can see. You can use a piece of paper, and we're going to do an example with a piece of paper. But just to get started, you take your canvas. He used large swaths of paint. What he tended to like to do in a lot of his pieces was like this one right here. It was dark on the outside, very bright on the inside. When we're working with color, we tend to want to go from a light color to a dark color, blues, blacks, browns. So I'm going to take, let's start with an orange here. I'm going to put orange, and what he did, he just poured the paint on, poured it on very generously. In fact, I'm going to put another splotch right there because I want to make sure I have enough for this. And then he took a piece, I'm using a tongue depressor right here, but basically he used a squeegee, like you clean your bathroom windows with, and he just dragged the paint from left, dragged the paint to right, then he dragged the paint vertically and go down the other side that way, and then he would drag the paint in the opposite direction. So basically what he did, he put the paint on in layers, very thin layers actually. Like he would put a layer down like this, and then he would put a coat of varnish over top of this. And now varnish is a clear sealant that seals the paint. And once he put that coat of varnish over top, he'd let it dry, and then he put several layers on top of that. But for example's sake today, we're just going to paint one layer of paint. So once he'd done that and it dried, then he would come back and do the same thing with a dark color paint. Now, because we don't have time for this to dry, I'm going to paint this on. I'm going to paint this layer on. So I'm just pouring the paint around the sides because a lot of his pieces were light colors in the middle, dark colors on the edge. And I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to just drag the paint along the sides. You might look at a piece and then you have another feeling, and it all comes from your heart. A feeling that comes from your heart that might say, this is beautiful. And of course I said you go from light to dark, but sometimes you might be motivated, and in the middle of that motivation you just feel that you need a nice bright circle going on in the middle of it. Now, you know, if I mix that yellow paint with the orange that I just put down, I would have a big mess and I wouldn't have my bright, beautiful center there. So I'm going to take a Q-tip. I just happen to have some Q-tips over there. And I'm going to just spread the paint very delicately, much like the way I imagine that Mr. Rothko would have done, because I just had this need, this feeling. I'm not saying this is the sun, but it kind of reminds me of the sun. And that was another thing that he did. He wanted people to get feelings of nature, impressions of nature. Oh, that's really nice. You might even decide, oh, why not? Just one more little one right there. Oh, maybe just a tiny one over there. So again, it's your own expression. And it just feels so good when you do it. And if that, like this one right here, the orange came through a little bit, but that's okay. And over here, I'm going to go and I'm going to make this one. I think I'll let this one come out a little bit, like that. Now that's it. That's my interpretation of a Mark Rothko painting. And you can do the same. I pray that you guys have enjoyed this, and I invite you to do your own Mark Rothko painting. I'm going to do another one in just a few seconds on paper. And you see, I have a smaller sheet of paper because, you know, you don't always need a great big piece of paper to work with, and especially when you're learning to create. So I have my piece of paper, and we're going to start with this is sort of a light orange, and I'm going to pour it down here. And again, I'm going to take my tongue disperser, and I'm going to spread it in one direction. You can use almost anything. You could use a credit card. You could use a tongue depressor. You could use another piece of mail. If you had mail at the house, you could use another piece of mail. Okay, so I've got that going there. So that's just a piece of paper. And I'm smoothing it. And any excess, I'm just pushing it back onto the paper. And again, like normally we would let that dry for a good long time. But today, for today's purposes, we're going to go with, and this time, put a little on there, and I go get back with my orange tongue disperser. And the colors are blending a little bit, but I kind of like the colors blending like that. And even once it dries, I can go back over this. I can go back over it once it dries and add more if I decide, oh, I really do want it to be a solid orange. I can make that decision at another time. And I can't impress enough that this is your special painting. Again, I'm feeling green. I just don't know what it is, but I got a feeling that green needs to go here. And this green has to be handled carefully, because if I don't handle it carefully, it's going to mix. So I'm going to just hold it up and I'm going to mix it in. There you go. Mix it in the painting. And I've made a rectangle, or something like a rectangle. And we're going to create one more little bar down here at the bottom. And it's, there you go. So that's my Mark Rothko painting complete. Again, we'd let this dry, and if we decided we wanted to come back over and accentuate the greens and make it even deeper, we could do that. Lay down my background sheet and very carefully, once this is dried, lay it down, and I have a perfectly framed piece of original abstract art. I think my thinking creative cap did a great job for me today. So thank you guys for coming, and remember, always enjoy your art. You are the creator. Every dot, every splash is perfect.